The door of the diner chimed and a man walked in. Naomi first saw him on a Tuesday night when the rain had just stopped and the streets outside still smelled like wet concrete. He walked in with four men, all in dark suits, all moving like shadows around him. But while they scanned the room with hard eyes, he looked at nothing. Just walked to the corner booth and sat down alone while the others took a table near the door. She'd been working at the diner for 8 months now, long enough to recognize the regulars, the tourists, the late-night drunks. But this man was different. He ordered black coffee in Korean so quiet she almost didn't hear him. Didn't look at the menu. Didn't look at her either. "Just coffee?" she asked, her Korean still awkward but improving. He nodded once. She brought it to him and he sat there for an hour staring out the window at nothing, the cup untouched and going cold. The second time he came, it was the same. Same men, same table, same silence. By the third visit, Naomi's curiosity got the better of her caution. "You know," she said as she refilled his cup, "in my country, we say coffee tastes better when it's warm." His eyes lifted to hers for the first time. Dark. Unreadable. She thought he might ignore her, but then something flickered across his face. "Your country?" "Nigeria," she said. "West Africa." He looked at her properly now, and she felt the weight of his attention like pressure in her chest. Up close, he was younger than she'd thought. Maybe early 30s. Sharp features, the kind of face that didn't need to try to be intimidating. "Long way from home," he said. "So is everyone in Seoul," Naomi replied with a small smile. "Except maybe you." She thought she saw the corner of his mouth twitch, but it was gone so fast, she couldn't be sure. That night, he drank the coffee while it was still hot. Over the next 2 weeks, he became a pattern. Always Tuesdays and Fridays. Always the same booth, always alone, despite the men who came with him. Naomi started looking forward to those nights, started preparing little comments in her head to see if she could get him to react. "Still just coffee?" she asked one Friday, setting down the cup. "The kimchi jjigae is really good tonight. You should try it." "I don't eat here," he said. "I've noticed. Why come to a restaurant if you don't eat?" He looked at her with those dark eyes. "Why does it bother you?" She shrugged, suddenly feeling bold. Maybe it was all those K-dramas she'd been watching, all those scenes where the girl just said what she was thinking. "Because you look lonely." The silence that followed was so complete she heard her own heartbeat. Then he said, "I am." It wasn't what she expected. His voice was flat, matter-of-fact, like he was commenting on the weather. But something in those 2 words made her chest ache. "Well," she said softly, "lonely people should eat warm food. I'll bring you the jjigae." "I didn't order on the house. Consider it a welcome gift from Nigeria to Korea." She walked away before he could argue, her hands shaking slightly. When she brought the stew 15 minutes later, he was still there, still waiting. He ate it slowly, methodically, and when she came to clear the bowl, it was empty. "Thank you," he said. It was the first time she'd heard warmth in his voice. His name was Minjun. She learned that 3 weeks later when one of his men called out to him as they were leaving. She tested it in her mouth later that night, lying in her tiny apartment. Minjun. It suited him somehow, the way sadness suited rain. He started ordering food after that. Never much, but enough. Sometimes they talked, brief exchanges that felt more significant than they should have. He asked about Nigeria, about why she came to Korea, and she told him about her grandmother who raised her, about falling in love with Korean dramas during long, lonely nights after her grandmother died, about wanting to see if the country was as beautiful as it looked on screen. "Is it?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said, "when I'm not too tired to notice." He almost smiled at that. She asked him what he did for work, and he said, "Business," in a tone that meant the subject was closed. She noticed the expensive watch, the way his men deferred to him, the scar that ran along his left hand. She noticed everything about him even when she tried not to. "You're staring," he said one night. "Well, you're interesting," she replied without thinking. Dangerous word. Which one, you or interesting? This time he did smile, small, barely there, but real. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less like a man carved from stone. Both, he said. Naomi felt something shift in her chest, something warm and terrifying. It was her coworker Su Min who first warned her. That man you always talk to, Su Min said one night as they cleaned up. Do you know who he is? His name is Min Jun, Naomi said. Why? Su Min's face went pale. That's Kang Min Jun. Everyone in Gangnam knows that name. He's dangerous, Naomi, really dangerous. He seems sad more than dangerous. Sad people can still hurt you. Su Min said quietly, Please be careful. But Naomi found she didn't want to be careful. She wanted to know why a man who could have anything chose to sit alone in a cheap diner twice a week. She wanted to know what made him smile, what made him sad, what he thought about during those long silences. The next time he came, she sat down across from him without asking. His eyes widened slightly. What are you doing? Taking my break. Do you mind? He looked like he wanted to say yes, but didn't. She took that as permission. Tell me something true, she said. What? Something true about you. I'll trade you one truth for one truth. Min Jun studied her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Why? Because I'm tired of serving coffee to a stranger? After a long moment, he said, I haven't had a real conversation with a woman in 2 years. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with loneliness. I miss my grandmother every single day, Naomi said softly. Even though she died 4 years ago, sometimes I still cook her recipes just to feel close to her. Something in his face softened. What does she make? Groundnut soup, jollof rice, kelawel when she was feeling fancy. Naomi smiled at the memories. She used to say food is how we tell people we love them when words aren't enough. She sounds wise. She was. What about your family? His expression shuddered immediately. I don't have family. Everyone has. I don't. The words were final, sharp enough to cut, but then he added quieter, not anymore. Naomi wanted to reach across the table to touch his hand, but she didn't. Instead, she said, Then I'll share mine with you. In Nigeria, we believe family is bigger than blood. It's whoever feeds you, whoever stays. Minjun looked at her for a long time, something unreadable in his eyes. You should go back to work, he finally said. She did, but she felt his gaze on her back the whole night. After that, things changed. He started coming 3 times a week, then 4. Sometimes he brought papers and worked while he ate, occasionally asking her opinion on things she didn't understand. She'd make something up and he'd smile that small smile, like he knew she was bluffing but appreciated the effort. One night, she brought him jollof rice she'd made at home. What's this? He asked. Your education. You can't be friends with a Nigerian and not try jollof rice. It's the law. Friends? She met his eyes. Aren't we? Minjun stared at the container for a long moment, then opened it. He took a bite, chewed slowly, and she watched his face for any reaction. Well, she demanded, it's good. Just good? This is my grandmother's recipe. It's supposed to be amazing. It's amazing, he said, and this time his smile was almost real. Naomi felt like she'd won something important. She started packing extra food for him, different dishes each time, teaching him about her culture through meals. He never asked for it, but he always ate it all, and sometimes she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't name. It was a Saturday night, not one of his usual days, when everything fell apart. Naomi was walking home from the diner, tired and thinking about what to cook for Minjun's next visit, when she heard shouting. She turned down an alley she usually avoided, drawn by some instinct she couldn't explain. That's when she saw him. Minjun stood in the center of a group of men, all of them armed, all of them facing off against another group. She recognized his men, but there were others too, strangers with hard faces and harder eyes. Minjun's voice was cold, commanding, nothing like the quiet tone he used with her. You come into my territory and think there won't be consequences? One of the strangers spat on the ground. Your territory? You're getting soft, Kang. Everyone knows it. spending your time in cheap diners instead of protecting your interests. Naomi's blood went cold. My interests are protected, Minjun said, and his voice was so devoid of emotion it frightened her. The question is whether you'll leave here alive to report that to your boss. Then she saw the gun. Minjun moved faster than she could track. He had the weapon pressed against the other man's head before anyone could react. His face was completely calm, like he was ordering coffee, not threatening to kill someone. Tell Park I'm not interested in his partnership. Tell him the next person he sends won't get a warning. The men backed away slowly, hands raised. When they were gone, Minjun lowered the gun, and that's when he saw her. For the first time since she'd known him, she saw real emotion on his face. Fear, not for himself, but for her, for what she'd seen. Naomi ran. She heard him call her name, but she didn't stop, didn't look back, just ran until her lungs burned and her legs shook. When she finally reached her apartment, she locked the door and slid down against it, shaking. Soo-min was right. He was dangerous. Really dangerous. She called in sick for 3 days. On the 4th day, she went back to work because she needed the money, but she avoided his table, asked Soo-min to cover that section. When he came that Friday, she hid in the kitchen until he left. He asked about you, Soo-min said. He looked worried. I don't want to talk about it. But on Tuesday he came early before the dinner rush, when Naomi was the only server on the floor. She saw him walk in, and her hands started shaking. He didn't sit at his usual corner. Instead, he walked straight to the counter where she was standing, his men staying outside this time. Naomi. She couldn't look at him. What do you want? To explain. There's nothing to explain. I know what you are now. Do you? His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Then why are you afraid? You never were before. She looked up at him then and saw that he was right. She'd never been afraid of him specifically, only of losing the person she'd thought he was. I'm not afraid of you, she said. I'm afraid of what you do. Minjun's jaw tightened. I never lied to you. You never told me the truth either. Would you have talked to me if I had? If the first time we met I'd said I run half the underground in Gangnam? She wanted to say yes, but she couldn't. They both knew the answer. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional stories like this one. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think will happen next. I should have told you, Minjun said into her silence. I wanted to. Every time you smiled at me, every time you brought me food like I was worth caring about, I wanted to tell you everything, but I was selfish. For the first time in 2 years, someone looked at me like I was human. I didn't want to lose that. Naomi felt tears burning in her eyes. I'm sorry. I can't be part of that world. I'm not asking you to be. He stepped closer and she smelled his cologne, something expensive and unfamiliar. I'm asking you to allow me explain. Have dinner with me. Let me show you who I am, all of it, and then decide. Why does it matter what I think? Because it does. His voice cracked slightly on the words. Because you're the only person who's treated me like I'm worth something in 2 years. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be more than what I do, and I don't want to lose that. She should say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed to say no and never look back. One dinner, she heard herself say. He picked her up on Saturday in a car that cost a fortune. She wore her best dress, a simple blue, thing that her grandmother had bought her, and felt underdressed the moment she got in. You look beautiful, Minjun said, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. He took her to a restaurant on the Han River, private and expensive, the kind of place she'd only seen in dramas. They sat by the window and she watched the lights reflect on the water while he ordered in Korean. I don't know what half those words meant, she admitted. Good. Let me surprise you. The food came in waves, each dish more elaborate than the last. Between courses, he talked. Really talked. For the first time. He told her about growing up poor in Busan, about his father's debts and his mother's death, about being recruited into the organization when he was 16 because he was smart and ruthless and had nothing to lose, about working his way up until he controlled his own territory, until he became the thing people feared. I'm not proud of what I do, he said quietly, but I'm good at it, and in this world, being good at staying alive is all that matters. Is that really all? Naomi asked. Is that all you want from life? He looked at her across the table, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. It was, he said, until I met a waitress who yelled at me for letting my coffee get cold. She laughed despite herself, and he smiled that real smile, the one that made her heart skip. I'm still scared, she admitted. Good? You should be. I'm dangerous, Naomi. The things I've done, the things I'll probably have to do again, they're not pretty. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. Then what can you promise me? Min-jun reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time they touched, and she felt electricity shoot up her arm. Honesty, he said, and that I'll keep you separate from it all. You'll never be involved, never be at risk. I swear it. How can you promise that? Because the alternative is losing. You, and I'm not willing to do that. They sat there, their hands linked across the table, and Naomi felt the last of her resistance crumbling. She knew it was stupid, knew she should run, knew this could only end badly, but she also knew that for the first time since her grandmother died, she felt less alone. Tell me about your mother, she said softly. Something in his face broke open. He told her about a woman who sang while she cooked, who worked 3 jobs to keep them fed, who died of exhaustion when he was 14. Naomi listened and squeezed his hand and didn't let go. When he drove her home that night, he walked her to her door. Can I see you again? He asked. You see me twice a week at the diner? That's not what I mean. She knew what he meant. She'd known since the moment he took her hand. Yes, she said. He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. Their relationship developed in quiet moments stolen between his dangerous world and her normal one. He never came to her apartment, said it was safer that way, but he called her every night. Sometimes they talked for hours. Other times they just sat in comfortable silence, and she could hear him breathing on the other end and know he was okay. He still came to the diner, but now sometimes he'd brush his hand against hers when she set down his cup, and the touch would linger just a second too long. Once, when the diner was empty except for them, he pulled her into the table beside him and kissed her forehead. I missed you, he said, even though they talked that morning. You're ridiculous. Only with you. On their third real date, he took her to Namsan Tower at night. They stood looking out over the city, her hand in his, and she felt like she was in one of those dramas she used to watch. What are you thinking? He asked. That this feels impossible, like I'm going to wake up and you'll have been a dream. He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. I'm real, Naomi. This is real. Then he kissed her, soft and careful, like she might break. She kissed him back, tasting coffee and mint and 2 years of loneliness finally breaking. When they pulled apart, his eyes were wet. No one's ever, he started, then stopped. Thank you. She cupped his face in her hands. You're welcome, my sweet Mafia prince. Things were good for almost 2 months. He was careful, so careful to keep her separate from his world. She never met his men properly, never saw the business side of things. When they were together, he was just Min-jun, not Kang Min-jun, who ran Gangnam's underworld. He was funny sometimes when he relaxed enough. He remembered everything she told him. He learned to cook jollof rice so he could surprise her with it one night, but he failed woefully. She was falling in love with him, and she knew it was stupid and dangerous and completely inevitable. Then came the night that changed everything. She was closing up. The diner late after midnight when 3 men walked in. Not Min-jun's men. She knew that immediately from the way they looked at her, hungry and mean. We're closed, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We're looking for someone, the tallest one said in English. Kang Min-jun, you know him? Her blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. We've seen you together. You're the African girl he's been playing with. The slur hit her like a slap, but she kept her face neutral. I don't know anyone by that name. Please leave. The tall one smiled, and it was the cruelest thing she'd ever seen. He took something from our boss. We're going to take something from him. They moved toward her. Naomi grabbed the coffee pot, still hot, and threw it at them. It shattered against the tall one's chest, and he screamed. She ran for the back door, but one of the others caught her arm, yanked her back hard enough that she felt something pull in her shoulder. Then the front door exploded inward. Min Jun stood in the doorway, and she'd never seen him look like this. His face was a mask of fury, cold and terrible. He had a gun in each hand. Let her go. The man holding Naomi pressed something sharp against her throat. A knife. She felt it bite into her skin. Or what, Kang? You'll shoot through her to get to us? No, Min Jun said, and his voice was so calm it was terrifying. I'll shoot you in the head before your reflexes can even twitch. I'm that good. Do you want to test me? The man hesitated. 3 seconds, Min Jun said. 1. The knife pressed harder. Naomi felt blood, warm and wet. 2. Okay. The man shoved Naomi forward and she stumbled. Min Jun caught her with one arm, never lowering his guns. Get out, he said to the men. Tell your boss this is his only warning. If anyone touches her again, I'll burn his entire organization to the ground. They ran. The moment they were gone, Min Jun's hands were on. Her face, checking her over, panicked in a way she'd never seen him. Are you hurt? Did they... Naomi, look at me. Are you okay? My neck, she managed. He looked at the cut and his face went white. He pulled out his phone, barked orders in Korean, then picked her up like she weighed nothing. I've got you, he whispered. I've got you. He took her to a private hospital, stayed while they stitched the cut, held her hand so tight it almost hurt. When the doctor left them alone, he knelt beside the bed and put his head in her hands. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice was broken. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I promised wouldn't happen. Naomi ran her fingers through his hair, and she could feel him shaking. It's not your fault. It is. Everything about this is my fault. I should have stayed away from you. The first night I saw you, I should have walked out and never come back. But you didn't. No. He looked up at her with red eyes. Because I'm selfish and I wanted you so badly, I convinced myself I could keep you safe. You did keep me safe. You saved me. I put you in danger in the first place. He stood up, started pacing. Don't you understand? This is what my life is. Violence and fear and people using the things I care about against me. I can't protect you from that. I thought I could, but I can't. Naomi felt something cold settle in her chest. What are you saying? He stopped pacing, looked at her with the most pain she'd ever seen in anyone's eyes. I'm saying you should go home, back to the diner, back to Nigeria, back to anywhere I'm not. Min Jun. I'll pay for everything. The flight, getting you settled, whatever you need. I'll make sure you're safe. But you have to go, Naomi. Please. She stared at him, this man who'd shown her his scars, who'd tried to cook her grandmother's recipes, who'd held her like she was something precious. No, she said. What? I said no, I'm not leaving. You have to. You almost died tonight because of me. I almost died tonight because some evil men made a choice. That's on them, not you. She stood up, ignoring the pull of the stitches. You don't get to make this decision for me, Min Jun. You don't get to decide what I can handle. I want to protect you. I don't need protection. I need you to trust me enough to let me choose this. Choose you. He looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Why would you choose this? Choose me? Because I love you, you idiot. The words hung in the air between them. She hadn't meant to say it, not like this, but there it was. Min Jun's face crumpled. Don't, please don't love me. Too late. He closed the distance between them, pulled her into his arms carefully, mindful of her injury. She felt him shaking against her. I can't lose you, he whispered into her hair. I can't. Then don't push me away. They stood there in the hospital room, holding each other, and Naomi felt him crying, silently, against her shoulder. I love you too, he finally said. So much. She pulled back to look at him. Then we figure this out together. No more trying to handle things alone. No more secrets. It's going to be hard. Dangerous. I grew up in a country where I watched my grandmother die because we couldn't afford her medicine. I moved across the world alone. I've survived hard before. He smiled through his tears and kissed her then, desperate and tender. After that night, things changed again. Minjun kept his word about no more secrets. He told her everything, showed her everything, even the parts that made her stomach turn. She met his men properly, learned their names, their stories. Some of them were kind once you got past the hard exteriors. Some of them weren't. She learned about the business, about protection and territory and the delicate balance of power. She didn't participate, but she understood. And understanding made her less afraid. Min Jun started, working toward getting out. It would take time, maybe years, but he was building something legitimate on the side, investing in businesses, creating a path toward a different life. For you, he said one night as they lay in his bed, her head on his chest. For us. For you, she corrected, you deserve more than this. He kissed the top of her head. I deserve nothing, but I'll take everything you give me. 3 months later, on a Tuesday night at the diner, he came in alone. No men waiting outside, just him carrying a small box. Naomi's heart started pounding. What's that? He set it on the counter between them. Open it. Inside was a simple gold ring with a small diamond. Not flashy, not expensive by his standards, but perfect. I know we haven't been together that long, he said quietly. And I know my life is complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you probably dreamed of. But I also know that I wake up every morning thinking about you and I go to sleep. Every night, grateful you're still here. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. He took her hand. Naomi, will you marry me? She looked at this man who'd been so lonely he'd sat in a diner drinking cold coffee, who'd learned to smile again because of her, who was trying to build a better life despite everything in his past pulling him down. Yes, she said. His smile was radiant, no shadows in it at all. They got married 3 months later, small ceremony, just Sumin and 2 of Minjun's most trusted men as witnesses. Naomi wore her grandmother's necklace and Minjun wore a suit without his gun for the first time in years. We're really doing this, she said as they stood facing each other. We really are. When they kissed, she felt him smiling against her lips. That night, in the hotel room he'd reserved, he held her close and she could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, steady and real. What are you thinking about? He asked softly. She smiled against his chest. Babies. He pulled back to look at her, eyes wide. What? Relax, she laughed. I'm just saying, in all those K-dramas I used to watch, this is where they show the couple with their beautiful babies. Usually 3 of them, always perfectly behaved. Min Jun's expression shifted from shock to amusement. You've been planning this? I'm just saying, if we're doing the whole K-drama thing, we should commit. Beautiful babies, big house, maybe a dog. A dog? Every drama family has a dog, Minjun. It's the law. He laughed then, really laughed, the sound filling the room. You're ridiculous. You married me anyway. I did. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. Though I should warn you, our babies will probably inherit my terrible sleeping schedule and your stubbornness. Perfect combination, she said, grinning. And the dog? Non-negotiable. He shook his head, still smiling. Fine, but I get to name it. Deal? They lay there in the quiet, and Naomi felt something settle in her chest. This was her life now, this impossible, dangerous, beautiful thing. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, he said, even if you're already planning to fill our house with chaos. Especially because of that. Outside, Seoul hummed with life, but inside their little room, the world was just the 2 of them, laughing about babies they didn't have yet and a future they were still building, one moment at a time. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments what you think their future holds. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Thank you.